Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is looking at the natal chart of Britney Spears. I actually did an ASMR version of this way back in 2015, right before I started doing astrology and tarot readings on YouTube. So please don't go check that out. Well, it's okay if you want to, but it was whispered and I'm just going to do a normal voice for the recording. So one of the reasons that I think it would be interesting to look at Britney's chart is because so much has happened since then. Well, specifically the fact that Britney is now emancipated from her father. He had the conservatorship that was, I think, last fall, like October or something like that, when there was the dissolving of that, whatever you call it, agreement or whatever. But she turned 40 in December. So how in the heck can somebody's father be in control of his daughter until the age of 39? That's crazy. So I wanted to just touch upon that because, as we know, Britney started in show business from a very early age. She was on Star Search as a child, but she also did off-Broadway, and then she was on the Mickey Mouse show when she was 11, and she was with Justin Timberlake there. So some of these names that, came up again in the late 90s, actually in the earlier part of that decade, she was on that show with Christina Aguilera and Justin Timberlake, and they became giant stars too. Kerry Russell. There was somebody else that was famous. I can't think of his name. I had it up here because I finally looked at Wikipedia just so I could get a handle on that. But let's see, Ryan Gosling. That was the other one. I think people have wondered, like, what are the odds of all these people becoming superstars, or at least several of them? I mean, Kerry Russell and Ryan Gosling, they've been in movies, so they've, been successful too. Maybe not to the level of the other three, but still. And they're all on the same show. Another thing to think about is that there are always the observation, there's always the observation of the childhood star that loses it. And I don't know so much about Christina. Justin doesn't seem to have fared that badly as an adult, and the other two seem like they've managed to transition to adulthood. But Britney did have a breakdown, as we all know. And I believe it was 2007, before her album Blackout, but it might have been 2005. I was looking for the exact year of when that happened. But, and then of course, eventually, yeah, it was 2006 actually. And what may have been a trigger is that her aunt died in January of 2007, and she was very close to her aunt. So she actually went to a drug rehabilitation center, and she didn't even last a day there. And then the next day, that was the infamous cutting, shaving the head. So you wonder what happened in that facility. Did they give her some kind of drugs? Did they do MK Ultra mind control on her? You never know. But there is always a speculation that these people that are connected with Hollywood have been mind controlled, and that eventually when they become young adults, that the mind control wears off, and then that's when they start to go off the reservation and out of their mind. And, like I said, some of these young people at the time did not have that episode, that psychotic episode that Britney did. So we can't just say it's across the board. But certainly, even before that era, I mean, there's so many of these childhood stars who did have problems as young adults. And what they always would say is, oh, they feel like they're washed up, they can't get work anymore, and so that's why they're acting that way. When in fact, it could be much darker than that. So anyway, by the way, there was a Instagram post that Britney supposedly erased not too long ago, where she said that she had been abused. I don't want to repeat all of that because I don't know if it's true. That might just be an internet rumor, but I wouldn't be surprised. Although I am kind of surprised if it was true, why the mainstream media wouldn't report it, but they probably don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So I don't know why I would be surprised about that. But anyway, eventually we'll find that out because something's got to give. She has her independence, so she probably, I think, like, in that alleged Instagram post, she said that she wants to, expose everybody who abused her. So we'll see if that was really true. By the way, I did not know that Britney was actually born in Mississippi. I knew she grew up in Louisiana, and I figured she was born there. But no, she grew up in Louisiana. Now we know that's the Deep South. And this is one of the interesting things about Britney because she has Libra rising, and she exemplifies that Southern, well, I was going to say the Southern belle, but that very polite demeanor that is attributed to people from the South. And so she has that, and that's one of the reasons I think she has endeared herself to so many people, because she comes across as a genuinely nice person. You don't hear about Britney, being a diva, being rude to people, and stuff like that. Britney's sun sign is Sagittarius and her moon is Aquarius. And she also has Mercury in Sag, Venus in Capricorn, and Mars in Virgo. So her Venus and Mars are in earth signs. This, when I talk about this, if you have this as well, you may experience similar traits. So just think about it in terms of your own chart if you know what your placements are, because her sun, moon, and rising are all masculine signs. They're fire and air. And so when you have inner planets that are like Venus and Mars, the divine lovers, that are feminine, what can happen is you can be attracted to, in her case, maybe earth signs or even water signs. And I don't know what K-Fed was. That was her husband, her baby daddy. Her ex-husband. They were married when they had their children. But for some reason, I think he's a Pisces. He might have been a Capricorn. God, I can't believe that I actually knew this. Well, actually, he was born on March 21st, 1978. So he's probably an early degree Aries. But anyway, so the interesting thing about Britney being a Sagittarian is that there are so many of these young stars who are Sagittarians. Christina Aguilera, I think that Miley Cyrus she's born on the 22nd of November, I think. So if she's like 0 degrees and she's on the cusp of Scorpio, but still, she might be. And Taylor Swift is a Sag. Nicki Minaj is a Sag. I'm pretty sure that I'm missing some other people. Vanessa Hudgens, is that her name? Is a Sag, but I don't think she's a singer, is she? I think she tried to have a singing career. And I think there's even somebody else. But even like in the past, Jim Morrison of the Doors is a Sag. Billy Idol, I think, is a Sag, I think. And he might be born on December 8th, too. Who else? Jimi Hendrix. Why are Sagittarians so represented in the entertainment field? Dick Van Dyke, who's almost 100 years old. I think all fire signs are because of creative self-expression, and that's associated with fire, first and foremost. And just wanting to, especially as a performer, because that's showing off the self in a big way. So when I look at the different houses, because, I'm trying to find out, okay, how did she get, this abuse that may have come to her growing up? Where would we see this in her chart? Or like a very controlling environment. In the first house of the self, that can indicate the early years, she has Saturn and Pluto. If I were a Vedic astrologer, I'd say that was, she's got two malefics in the first house. So coming into this lifetime, she's coming into this control, this authoritarianism with Saturn. They form a conjunction, and Pluto can be about trauma, violence, and even in some cases life and death. And so that kind of situation certainly shows that there might have been a very scary, possibly, environment that she was raised in. And I don't know. I'm always a little bit leery of saying things like that, but someday she'll do her autobiography, I hope, and maybe she'll spill the beans on some of that. But we can tell by the way that her father is acting in terms of trying to control her as a woman who is, a mother of two, somebody who works, entertains, and she still has to answer to this parent, and it's some kind of a legal arrangement. I'm talking about, before they dissolved it, but I mean, that doesn't sound right at all. And then you have in the 8th house, Chiron, and the 8th house can indicate some kind of traumatic situation, and Chiron also indicates the trauma, but the shadow, the deep taboos and secrets that this represents. And really what I see with people who have Libra rising that can come from troubled families is that they put on a smile. Sometimes they might come from families that require of them to do that if their parents are in a prominent position. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that was what happened in Britney's case, because she was the prominent one. Her parents weren't really the famous ones. But let's say you're the child of a pastor or a child of a politician, and you're expected to be perfect, and you have to, the rising sign is your image, and you have to be constantly, being gracious and acting like everything is perfect. And these are the people who can really do that. And so even under duress, Britney managed to convey this sense that everything was fine until it wasn't, right? Until she broke down. But she always had that bit of a controversy, didn't she? And it's interesting because her sun is in conjunction with Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius. And then she has her moon in conjunction. No, I'm sorry. And then she has her moon in Aquarius. So these are both, the moon is directly in Aquarius, but the sun is in conjunction with Uranus. So it's kind of like having the sun in Aquarius. This can be the person who is different and they enjoy being different. Now, on the surface, Britney looks like, blonde bombshell. And, she certainly had that image that was attractive. People with Libra or Taurus rising are ruled by Venus, and they tend to be physically attractive. And in show business, a person like this is going to take advantage of those looks and charm and, try to advance as far as possible. But where did the kind of sexual Lolita type of vibe come from? Because apparently that's her first hit, Baby One More Time, she was the one who decided to tie her shirt so that she showed her belly. And, it was provocative. It was kind of like, those, little Catholic skirts that are like mini skirts. And I think she had, stockings that went up to her, her thigh high stockings or something. And I remember when I first encountered her, I think it was in Rolling Stone magazine, when she came out with her first album, and she must have been about 17 at that point. And she had on a pair of little, like short shorts, booty shorts that they would call them. And on her booty, it said baby. Maybe because of Baby One More Time, I don't know. But isn't it interesting that she was a minor and they actually put that in a magazine? So they were already marketing her in that way. And why would she even be a participant in that? Well, with Chiron in the 8th house, and the 8th house can be sexuality, but maybe taboo, dark sexuality, abuse in this area. This may be something that she was trying to kind of empower herself by, taking what had become, something that was used against her and benefiting from it. Now, interestingly enough, now that I think about it, maybe that explains a lot of this Venus square Pluto aspect. When somebody has a hard angle from Venus to Pluto, whether it's the square or the opposition, but even the conjunction might be a bit hard, they will tend to see sex as a commodity. And this can come sometimes from a past of sexual abuse or some other type of, maybe witnessing the situation with their parents, or where it seemed like it was not a marriage of love, but of convenience, or some kind of like a bartering system, because Venus can be the love or the supposed love, and Pluto is or also Venus can be the money, but Pluto is the control and the dark sexuality. And how do they clash? People who have this angle sometimes marry for money, or they get involved in things where there's an exchange of money and sex. Obviously, you could say prostitution, but sometimes there are blurred lines, to quote Robin Thicke, where it's, like sometimes marriage can be prostitution. Especially if you have a much younger woman with an older man, and she's the trophy wife and he doesn't really love her, and she doesn't really love him, but they're both getting something out of the bargain. So the point is that she probably knew that that was a way to gain popularity and also, make a lot of money from it, to capitalize on it. So she always kind of was a lightning rod for controversy because of overt sexuality, but she got away with it because of her Libra rising, in my opinion, because I feel like she always came across as classy, even when she was, being sexual. Now, the interesting thing is I'm going to do the chart of Miley Cyrus, and she has Taurus rising instead of Libra. Both of them are ruled by Venus, but Taurus is the earth sign, so it tends to be more, you could say it can be more crass when the person is trying to be sexy, because they're not as elegant. They're just like, okay, I'm just going to be as sexual as I can be. By the way, I have Taurus rising. But my my mini skirt days are long gone. So anyway, and it's just interesting because I think that Miley copied Britney, being younger than she is, much younger. And I remember when she was trying to pull a Britney and trying to be sexual when she was underage, and it just was so cringe and trashy and everything like that, because it didn't have the same kind of classiness. So Britney has Jupiter in the second house. So does Donald Trump. This is the house of financial abundance, and I mean it's the house of the money that a person earns or attracts to them. And I found out when I looked at Wikipedia that Britney's first two albums are some of the best-selling albums of all time. So I don't know what her net worth is, but it's probably up there. Now, I have Jupiter in the second house, and I'm like, okay, I'm here, bring it on, universe. But in the third house, it's very interesting. She has a stellium here. She has 4 planets here. And the reason that I find it interesting is that the third house is the house of the mind. Britney has never been accused of being a genius. Now, the truth is that sometimes people are very intelligent, but you would never know it by hearing them talk or whatever. Marilyn Monroe was a Gemini, and I think she had the moon in Gemini too or something. And she played an airhead. She played characters that were airheads. And Britney has the moon in Aquarius. Aquarius is, even Sag, is considered an intellectual sign, but definitely the Aquarius energy. The air signs are ruled by the intellect, and so she's got the Libra. She also has the sun in conjunction with Mercury. So there's every chance that Britney is a closet intellectual, which sounds, absolutely crazy for me to say. But all I can say is that her sun is in this house, her Mercury, and this is the ruler of the third house, is in this house. She has Uranus here and Neptune here. Now, when Britney was in grade school, because she was in show business off and on, I don't know that she was going to school. I don't know how much she was going to school. I read on Wikipedia that she said that she was bored in high school. Just being in the regular high school. But I don't know about grade school if she was there, because the third house can be grade school. And obviously when she was in the Mickey Mouse Club, I'm sure she wasn't in school. during the day. So, but that was when she was 11. So the point I'm trying to make is if she dropped out of high school to pursue her show business aspirations, it's very possible that she has been learning things on her own, like she's a self-learner. That wouldn't surprise me because she has a lot to indicate that. The sun here can indicate a person who is somebody who identifies with their life with the life of the mind. It's like having the sun in Gemini, Mercury, same, like somebody who is a very what we would call articulate person, somebody who, especially since there's a conjunction between the sun and Mercury, might even be quite brainy. Now, the interesting thing is that she has Neptune here. I have a video just on Neptune alone in this house. Sometimes that can lead to learning disabilities or even, like I would think, ADD, where there's an attention deficit, because Neptune is very cloudy, like nebulous and very disorganized. This is because it is not linear kinds of thought in the third house. It's more somebody who is having psychic impressions. So it's not logical. It's not a logical mind, but it's a highly psychic, a highly intuitive mind, and a highly receptive mind, a suggestible mind. And she has Uranus here, which can indicate like some sort of eccentric, maybe some far out thoughts. And there was a reality show that she did with K-Fed back in the day, and she was saying some wild stuff. I think she was talking about ETs or something like that. Aliens, and I don't know. So that it would be something along those lines, but that's intuitive as well. What I'm wondering with Neptune in the third is if her mind does have blanks in it, because maybe she has been programmed. And when people are programmed, they're compartmentalized. So the part of them that is, they call it trauma-based mind control, because they are traumatized into that mind control. And they can be triggered with words, like that movie, The Manchurian Candidate. I really recommend that people see that movie to understand what may have been done to people in this world in order to advance certain agendas, because it's listed as a dark comedy, and yet it scared the hell out of me. It came out in 1963, which just so happened to be the year that John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And it was put on the shelf for that reason, I think, which is weird, because if it hadn't been released by then, it probably was about to come out right around that time. Frank Sinatra was in the movie, and it's just, it really is too close for comfort, based upon things that have happened in human history up until the present day with certain people. And so the only reason that I'm bringing that, some people are going to think, oh, wow, she's really out there. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because I think this speaks to the heart of, people like Britney. Because we can focus on their mental issues and say, oh, wow, they have mental health issues. And yet we don't know what has been done to them. She said in that race post, I think, that she had been drugged and, whatever. We don't know if that's a legitimate post, but I wouldn't be surprised because, I just think that the nature of the entertainment industry is not a very high vibration type of environment. So I think there are a lot of predators in that environment. So anyway, this could indicate somebody who doesn't have all her memories with Neptune here, or that is easily suggestible, can go in under hypnosis very easily. So if you have Neptune here, you may be like that. Also, just in terms of lies and the truth, Neptune in the third can mean that maybe the person was told things that were not true and they question their own reality they question their thoughts, they question their reality based on communication that they received that may have been false or may have been half-truths. But definitely somebody who's very psychic. Venus is in the fourth house, and even if she came from a very intense environment, I think that there's a saving grace. Maybe as a mother, this is something that makes her life feel harmonious. Because she was on the young side when she started having children. Not excessively young, but she was in her early 20s. And I'm sure that her boys are the reason that she has, made it out the other end the way that she has, because she had them to get better for. And so that may have been a saving grace, and that's why Venus is here. Also, like I said, she had an aunt who passed away, and that person may have been near and dear to her and given her the love she might have felt lacking in her family of origin. In her fifth house, she has the moon, which is very important for creativity and that sense of, creative self-expression. It can show that she's a romantic person. In the 10th house, she has the North Node at 23 degrees of Cancer. Cancer is a water sign, so it's interesting to see that at the midheaven. In terms of career, I don't associate show business necessarily with, Cancer, but water signs are all creative. What I do think is that, what I do know is that Cancer is the mother. And so to have the North Node in Cancer itself means that she was likely born to have children, that was part of her soul's mission. But it's in the 10th house of career, the opposite house. So even as she is a mother, she is still somebody who has a career, and a prominent career at that. In the 12th house, she has Mars, and that can indicate the person who, as a child, because of these other placements that I talked about, may not have had the ability to express anger because of this person who was in control of the household. When this happens, I think this can be very damaging for people when they cannot express aggressive emotions, like anger, because of a rageaholic or somebody else that is intimidating in that environment, because we all get angry. And in the 12th house, it's like the person stuffs their anger. When they get old enough, this can be a sign of the person who has a compulsive personality, especially as it pertains to well, that's kind of redundant, compulsive personality for addiction. But this can be a drive towards abuse of some sort, self-destruction, self-destructive tendencies. So somebody who uses substances as a way to escape feelings, problems, etc. And so luckily this is in Virgo, so it may be more perhaps modified, I would say. But it's interesting because her Mars in Virgo can make her perfectionist. And there's a video on YouTube of her doing her dance moves, and I think that it was like showing how hard she works. And this is indicative of somebody who probably is a very hard worker, and maybe they need to gravitate towards those kinds of routines, because the 12th house is the opposite of the 6th house, which Virgo rules, and that is, dealing with daily routines and organization and things like that. So Mars in the 12th house has to learn how to do things that are constructive and not destructive. And this could mean, like, this would be a great position for somebody to do yoga and like physical movement, maybe Tai Chi or Qigong, if that's how you pronounce it. I just want to see if there's anything. Okay, so looking at her aspects, I've already talked about some of them. One of them is a square between Venus and Saturn. This is the classic square, you could say aspect, because it could be in opposition too, of the person who doesn't feel like they are loved for whatever reason. Maybe the parent is downright abusive. Maybe the parent is neglectful. Maybe the parent is, I was going to say busy, but that can be a form of neglect where you're not giving the child enough attention. So the child may interpret that treatment as not being loved, whatever it is. It's easier when you get older to say, well, I think my parent had mental illness, or they had some kind of an addiction, so they really were wrapped up in their own problems. Or my father was a workaholic and he just couldn't take himself away from that. He couldn't drag himself away from his work. Maybe it was fear-based. Maybe he was afraid that if he didn't work 10 hours a day that he wouldn't be able to keep his job. But they're trying to see it in a better light, in other words. And let's see what else. Oh, one thing I wanted to point out, which is interesting, is that Britney, in addition to having Chiron in the 8th house, she has Chiron in Taurus. For somebody who is ruled by Libra and also has Chiron in Taurus, both of these ruled by Venus, Libra and Taurus being ruled by Venus, appearance becomes a painful thing. And I remember when Britney gained a little bit of weight back when after she lost her mind for a while. And I think she was on some kind of drugs to stabilize her mood. And some of these drugs cause people to gain weight. And how she was criticized. So these kinds of things are not uncommon in general, especially for women, because of the nature of just how society is, that women are expected to be beautiful. But something may have caused her pain surrounding this issue. Even if you think about it this way, if a young girl is exceptionally beautiful from the time she's young, she may be, and somehow is perceived in a way that makes her seem older than she is or what have you. She may be easy prey for predators, and her looks can be a source of pain. So, you can look at it both ways, that that for her, the issue of having, the pressure of having to keep up with appearances may be a source of pain, but it could also be because it puts her on the radar. It makes her more of a target. I think that Britney doesn't necessarily have a bad self-image in terms of her looks, because she's never been said to have an eating disorder. She's never been really had a weight problem. That time that I was talking about, it was just like, it wasn't even that much weight. She was well within the normal range, but it was just because people were used to seeing her a little bit thinner. So that's just kind of an interesting thing that might be something that she's had to contend with. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I want to talk about. I think I covered everything that I wanted to say. And another thing, too, about adding to her looks is she has a trine between Venus and the ascendant. So that's the most harmonious angle. So it's cooperative. The Venus energy, it's not just the looks, it's also the graciousness, the charm. These easily flow to her. And it's just very nice for her in terms of popularity even. Okay, that's what I have about Britney. Don't know how many people stayed to the end, but I just enjoy doing these kinds of things. If you would like me to look at your chart, I would be happy to do that. I have double readings where I spend an hour looking at the natal chart and another hour looking at the transits. Some of the transits for the next 12 months to give an idea of what the themes are. That's called my deep dive reading. You can find out about that reading and other readings I have to offer at the link below. Take care. Bye.